So for our next watercolor, we're going to play on the concept of using imagery to create meaning. And we're also going to get to use some different techniques to do that. So we're going to be able to use stencils or some other strategies that will allow us to effectively repeat imagery over and over again without it being a big feat. So what we can do is to continue to play on the transparent nature of watercolor through manipulating value, color, and space, as well as repetition. So you're going to get a choice in subject matter. You can use text, you can use words, so you can use like letters and numbers. You can use symbols like the recycling sign here. You can make your own imagery. So this is like my cookie cutter one that I made, so I can make an actual stencil. You could also buy a stencil if you wanted to. And so here's some different examples of the lesson. You can see that there is a wide range of ways that you can do this. And I don't really want it to all look the same. I don't want this to look like a project. So you can take your own approach for this. So the following is examples of artworks that are inspiration for this, but aren't necessarily watercolor. So letters and numbers. This is Jasper Johns, and he's notorious for doing letters and numbers during the pop art style of the 1960s. And so you can see how he uses color, right, to represent the imagery. Thinking about a time in your life where you might see the alphabet written on a wall. And so thinking of like things like elementary school, it makes sense that he's using really bright, vivid colors. He's explored this in many different ways, or he did explore this in many different ways. And you can see how he didn't always use bright, cheerful colors. Sometimes he made the colors muted, and sometimes he eliminated color. And so when he did that, he was changing the meaning. So bright and colorful might be a great memory, but then maybe this is a memory fading, right? And then it's completely gone. So notice how he's repeating the imagery. It could be done in rows. It could be overlapped, like this example on the right. This one is done in ink, but it really feels like watercolor. So notice how he's kind of exploiting the characteristics of the media. He did words, right? This is BOCHNER, and he does billboard art. And so here we have the word blah. And so of course, blah has its own meaning, but what happens when you keep repeating it over and over again? Think about how the meaning is changed, right? Sometimes he exploits the concept of semantic saturation. So what happens when you repeat a word over and over again? This might, you remember sometimes a word doesn't sound like a word, or it starts to lose its meaning. Think about what words you could repeat to create a concept. This is a sketchbook that I did, right? Kind of this idea of always having to do more. Right? You can do phrases, quotes, etc. So image not available. This is an actual artwork, not that the image is unavailable, right? And so I got some of the artists for this is from this article on artists who use the power of words. So one of my favorites is Jenny Holzer, and she chooses her words very carefully. This is in Las Vegas. So if you think about what Las Vegas is notorious for, it kind of makes sense, her word choice. This is one of her pieces called Piles, right? How does she arrange the words nameless, cruel, and forces? Why did she choose to pile them? Why did she choose to use red seen through the text? How does the color create mood, right? This was at the Art Institute last year. You can see it ended in January, just ended. So this is another artist who uses text. And so she would use graphic sort of imagery, so it could work really well with stencils, and then add her text to it. Some of her works fill entire gallery walls. And so this, I don't have the name of the artist here. Think about how you can have the words not be in lines, and why is some of the words in gray and some of the words in color. So this is actually a group. This is like a business who does these large sort of graphics, and you can see how they use stencils to create words on walls in businesses. This is Karen Vogel. And notice how she incorporates the actual stencil into the work. Now, if you buy your own stencils and you want to collage them in, you totally can, but you can also paint in, fill in imagery to make it look like there's a stencil on your watercolor. So what we want to think about is when we're repeating the imagery, how can we get different effects using our watercolor? Right? And then lastly, we have symbols and icons. A really good example of this is Andy Warhol. And he did use a stencil method to do this Marilyn Monroe image. And so he was really thoughtful about what colors to use. If we look at this diptych of Marilyn, notice how bright and garish the color is here, and then how it's reduced to black and white. So why would he use garish colors? Why would he use bright colors? If you know anything about Marilyn Monroe, that was her public persona. She actually was a brunette. And so the makeup, the blonde hair was all kind of added on to kind of create her appeal to the masses. And so this is really kind of like the fake person, right? Her actual name was Norma Jean. And then this side here represents maybe her memory after her passing. So this painting was done after she died of an overdose. Here's another example of repeated imagery using stencils of Elvis. Notice how it has irregular spacing, right? You can use symbols to create meaning, right? Banksy does stencil art in his graffiti style, right? Oops, sorry, went too fast. So we can create stencils and exploit the qualities of it. You can even buy stencils by Banksy, right? And so here's some student examples and teacher examples of this. So this is one of mine. This is another sketchbook assignment, right? So here's some student examples. So they use leaves as stencils. This was when we were remote. It was a slightly different assignment. We don't really have good leaves out in nature right now. Here is stencils made out of, or gears made out of stencils. This is watercolor stencil. So I wouldn't want you just to do a simple peace sign. I'd want you to get more elaborate than this, but I did find this example of using stencil online. Okay. So here's my cookie cutter example. Here's some student examples. They used multiple stencils, used the same stencil, right? So I want you to start thinking about how you, or what you can create. So attached to the agenda and to Canvas is a brainstorm, and there's two sections to it. One of them is on text. So if you want to use words to create meaning, the other one is on symbols. So you don't have to fill out this whole chart. I'd like you to do at least 2 rows on each side. Feel free to do more so that you can expand your ideas if you're not happy with them. And then start to work on section 2. This is going to be due a little bit later. It's not due today, but you, since you have some time, feel free to work on it. Feel free to email me or ask me questions in class.